Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, the Shark, and our special guest this week is Stormflame. Today is our 178th episode, and we're discussing the 2006 Pokemon Battle Frontier episode, Odd Pokémon Out. So, let's get things started.
If you're strong, you'll survive and you'll keep your dream alive. It's the battle frontier. Pokemon, be the best you can be and find your destiny. It's the master plan. The power's in your hands. Pokemon.
Yep, no better way to start than with the theme. So, we have discussed the Pokemon anime on the podcast many times at this point. I think the count is at least 7 times, maybe 8. And spoilers, this is definitely not going to be the last time we're going to be talking about Pokemon either. This is from the Hoenn generation of Pokemon, which actually is my favorite Pokemon generation for many reasons. This is also the generation in the anime where Misty left and was replaced by both May and Max. The showrunners actually were given a choice. They could either keep Misty or they could either keep Team Rocket. They chose Team Rocket, which, as we'll see in this episode, was a very, very good decision to make.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. You can't have Pokemon without Team Rocket.
And unless you're Horizons, but we'll get to that later. This one is a personal, nostalgic one of mine as well, since I may have started things off with Johto. I ended up leaving the dance with Hoenn. Yeah, I may have skipped a generation with Advanced Battle, but I was there for a vast majority of Battle Frontier, and it stuck with me to this day.
Yeah, it's easy to see why, because again, just the Pokemon design from this generation looks so well.
I never grew up with Gen 3 or Hoenn. I actually started watching Pokemon the next generation over with Gen 4.
You do a lot worse than Sinnoh, to be fair.
Yeah, Sinnoh's amazing. Then I continued to Unova with Pokemon Black and White. Could have been better. Then I continued with the Kalos generations.
I guess kind of backwards because I was more into the animes than the actual games. Like, I did start the animes with the first one, but I didn't play a Pokemon game until Gen 3 of all generations, so funny.
The episode begins with the narrator saying how Ash and his friends are heading to Chrysanthemum Island for May's next contest. However, there is no direct ferry to the island. They had to take a ferry to Cowmile Island for their connecting trip. And the island obviously got its name from SpongeBob and Patrick's Crazy Night, where SpongeBob and Patrick really went crazy with the Cowmile, and then Patrick stole SpongeBob's donut. But that's a story for another time.
Yeah, also, little known fact, this is where Peppermint Butler gets his chamomile for Princess Bubblegum's chamomile tea. For all those headaches, you know?
We then see the group looking over at various Pokemon in the field, which they actually use some of the stock Pokemon poses for this sequence. It's like, you can tell they actually just took the designs and plopped them in the field, and it's really noticeable. Max sees a group of Rhyhorn, as Brock notes how there's all different sorts of Pokemon in the field. Ash says for their own Pokemon to have fun, as the others all agree, throwing their Pokeballs and letting all their friends out. One thing to point out is, at least for the English dub, this is when they just changed the voices from the original set of voice actors to the new ones, and you could tell with this episode in particular, they were still going through growing pains, because, especially with Ash, his performance here is really off in some places. Now, in the dub that I saw as a kid, they actually kept the same voice actors throughout the show, so that wasn't a problem. But here, yeah, it's pretty noticeable, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I agree. This was at the moment where the new VA for Ash was trying to find her own footing while also keeping the original VA's style that she does for Ash. And, I mean, it only gets better from here, especially by the time of Diamond and Pearl, but I honestly remember this being a lot better than it was when I rewatched it, because growing pains is the only term I can think of when I do this.
As somebody who did not grow up with Gen 3, Gen 4, when you're looking back at this, the voice is so gravelly, I can't actually stand it. It feels so odd, that gravelly voice coming from Ash. And I'm glad they got to. By the Diamond and Pearl, it was perfected. The actress got her.
After all the Pokemon cheer, we then get the intro of the show. What's interesting here is the intro actually shows sequences from the show, instead of being entirely custom made like some of the other previous Pokemon seasons. We see all of the members of the Battle Frontier with their Pokemon, as the intro ends with Ash posing with Swellow, Corphish, and of course Pikachu. We then cut right to the title card, which begins with Pikachu wearing Ash's hat before he leaps into Ash's arms to see the rest of the group, which is very interesting because previously in other Pokemon seasons, they would have a little bit of an intro before getting to the title card, but here it goes right from intro to title card, so it's pretty neat to note that.
I really like how this pretty much is the most hype and pretty accurate representation of the Battle Frontier, because if you know your Pokemon, then you absolutely know how tough the Battle Frontier really are. Gen 3 or 4, doesn't matter. These guys mean business, and these guys need you to think. The Omni-Man side, I really love this opening, and I really love how it just hypes you up for the episode that we're going to get, in spite of the episode we're going to get.
The theme here, I do actually like it. Yeah, and I never played the games with the Battle Frontier, but given I know one of those guys uses legendary Pokemon as their main team, yeah, they're pretty strong. Granted, it's the Reggie trio, but it's not my favorite. I like Pokemon Johto, the first season theme. That was a pretty good one.
After the title card, we then see Donphan play with a group of baby Rhyhorn as he tries to play with them. However, the Rhyhorn run off, causing the parents to get enraged and begins to charge at Donphan. Donphan runs towards Ash and his friends as the group realizes that it's a stampede. However, before anyone can get hurt, Nurse Joy then arrives in a jeep, sending out Meganium. Meganium is the reason we are discussing this episode, as it turns out it is the evolved form of the previously discussed in the podcast Chikorita, and this one is female. Meganium uses Growl to calm down the Rhyhorn as Donphan breathes a sigh of relief. May looks up Meganium's info on her Pokedex, while Brock instantly starts hitting on Nurse Joy, saying how she's like her Meganium in more ways than one. And probably one of the funnier moments of the episode, Brock with the girls never got old, even in any generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny Bravo, Sanji, and Brock are the holy trinity of womanizers that will always be timeless no matter what. And the fact that Max has became the new Misty during that era definitely speaks volumes for all the slack that kids got to put up with, especially with Brock.
You probably think that without Misty in this series, Brock will be free to, keep boosting over girls, but nope. They add a replacement with Max, who is going to be the one stopping him. It's great because this running gag was kept even after Max left, to the point that even Brock's own Pokemon will stop him from doing this.
Yeah, that was always great when they had that.
That was actually my favorite of that running gag, because, I don't know, something about his Pokemon stopping him from being himself was always a chuckle. And the fact he did poison Gab to do it.
Max manages to pull him away, while Nurse Joy notes that the group of Pokemon are there. Ash points out that everyone has calmed down, then notices that Grovyle is not there. Pikachu points out that Grovyle is by a tree with a tropius as they both growl at each other. Ash then looks up tropius on his Pokedex, while Nurse Joy points out that tropius is using the tree as his territory, attacking anyone else who comes close. Grovyle then charges at tropius, only for the latter to use both Steel, Wing, and Gust to knock down the grass type. Ash runs over to help, as tropius then starts using Razor Leaf. However, Nurse Joy then tells Meganium to use Razor Leaf as she does so, which actually manages to stop Tropius's hostility. Ash points this out as Nurse Joy mentions how Tropius refuses to attack her, as it turns out they may have a bit more of a relationship than we think.
Yeah, because getting bodied by a female Brontosaurus plant creature definitely means that love is going to happen. But yeah, all things considered, I love me Tropius. Tropius is an awesome Gen 3 Pokemon, and I don't care what people say, I will take it into the Hoenn League any day of the week, even if it ends up being a little bit of a quote-unquote home wrecker, as you'll no doubt find out.
Tropius really needs to share his territory, and I think I know the best pony to do it. Pinkie Pie with her share song.
You gotta share. You gotta care. Exactly.
Oh man, that would just make things worse.
Ash runs over to Grovyle, who is badly hurt, as Nurse Joy says they have to get Grovyle to the Pokemon Center. As they all drive off, Tropius then calls out to Meganium. We then cut to a pair of binoculars, as Team Rocket are watching Tropius, with Meowth suggesting that they get it for Giovanni. Jesse and James are shocked at this, as we then cut to another one of Meowth's boss fantasies. We're a running gag with this generation, and almost always are hilarious. It's Meowth pointing out how Giovanni can use the Pokemon of the episode alone in some sort of way that would benefit him. I think that my favorite one of the boss fantasies was the one for Psyduck. Giovanni can look at Psyduck and be glad he's not as stupid as Psyduck is.
Yeah. I mean, mine was personally when they were going after Gibble, talking about the boss having an inner boss, and he just cuts to him stripping his suit and just being in a Speedo while he's playing with Gibble on the beach.
I'm glad it only took us 5 minutes to get to the main characters of the series.
Yeah, I love like how we have these fantasies with Giovanni now being all funny, all ridiculous. Remember, in season 1, Giovanni was treated like this mysterious figure. He was in the shadows. He was serious. Team Rocket was alright afraid of failing him because they were afraid what gonna do with him. And now they just, like Angron said, we can get seconds with him shirtless, jumping on the beach, being all this silly, and it's like, times did change between generations.
Yeah, I blame Mewtwo.
Just want to say those fantasies actually did continue into Diamond and Pearl, but sadly ended by Black and White because they rewrote Team Rocket. But my favorite was in a certain episode with a cat Pokemon, and Meowth actually made that one up just an excuse to steal that Pokemon because he was in love with that cat. And even Team Rocket felt a little odd about the whole. Like, they were a little suspicious of Meowth's attentions.
This boss fantasy has Tropius serving not only as shade for Giovanni on the beach, but Meowth also notes that the boss can eat some of Tropius's yummy fruit, as we see Giovanni pick a banana off of Tropius and eat it. Meowth says that Giovanni will be so happy with Tropius that he'll say, "I've got to reward Meowth and his friends with a promotion and a big raise." Jesse and James, I always love when that happens. Every single boss fantasy always ended with Giovanni saying how wonderful Meowth and his friends are. And Meowth, of course, takes all the credit. Jesse and James are excited at this, as they say all they have to do is capture Tropius. Meowth points out that's easier said than done, as Jesse and James suggest with alliteration that Meowth talk to Tropius, saying how you'll have it eating out of your paw, as Meowth quips, or eating my paw. Tropius tries eating berries from a tree as Meowth walks up to Tropius, and I do love this moment too. How he tries convincing Tropius, he just whips out a megaphone and starts screaming in a hilarious moment. He tells Tropius that you could have whatever you want, as Tropius just chirps at Meowth, and then Meowth screams, "Do I sound like I'd lie to you?" at the top of his lungs. And I don't know, just something about that. It's just so silly and so simple. It really does work.
I see Meowth with the megaphone, and all I can think is him going, "Tropius, this is Meowth. Do you know where the remote is? I look all over the house."
Yeah, absolutely. All the villains should just scream into the megaphones at the top of their lungs.
Tropius then makes another noise as Meowth tells him that I'm a can-do Pokemon and you can consider it done. Jesse and James ask Meowth if it went okay, as Meowth says that all Tropius wants is for Meganium to come with them too, saying how he's in love. Jesse and James then point out that Tropius stopped attacking, then note that Meganium also has the power to heal, and that the boss might want it, saying that they'll take that too. One thing to point out, for some reason in this series, Team Rocket really likes to rhyme at the end of their sentences. It's kind of a running gag, and it kind of comes out of nowhere compared to earlier on in the show.
You know when Tropius wants to actually go with Team Rocket as long as they get Meganium? Remember that, because there's something that comes up in the end.
We then cut to the Pokemon Center, where Meganium is healing Grovyle with their powers. Grovyle wakes up to see Meganium staring at him as he instantly falls in love with the twig in his mouth suddenly sporting a flower. The others are all shocked at this, as Nurse Joy points out that all of Meganium's attention made him get better. Brock points out that it looks like true love to me, as Grovyle blushes at this. Nurse Joy says that Grovyle will be all better after some more rest, as she and Meganium then leave the room. Ash points out that Grovyle looks like he has a red face, as Brock says that it's a fever from being lovesick. May says that that's better than being sick, as Brock notes that after being beaten by Tropius, Grovyle doesn't want to admit his true feelings, as we get a flashback of Ash and the others decide to let Grovyle rest, with Ash saying that Grovyle will be good as new, as Grovyle then gets up and looks confident. We then cut to Team Rocket in their mech as they break the wall down with it. then use a giant robot arm to catch Meganium.
Here is where the dreaded and very much displeasurable love triangle begins. And while it's not completely center stage, and honestly, compared to most love triangles throughout several different series, is brief and not as bad for Pokemon, and especially for one of Ash's Pokemon, Grovyle, it's pretty rough, not gonna lie, and leads to something that we're gonna cover in a bit, but it's something that is honestly on Tropius and Meganium.
Ash and the others arrive as Nurse Joyce says about her Meganium being stolen. Ash asks who did it, which, oh gee, there's only a giant R on the front of the mech, so obviously it must be all up to Team Magma.
Or Team Aqua.
I at least give this to the anime for consistency's purposes. Ash has always been an idiot, and as the series went on, he got dumber and dumber.
It got to the point that there's an episode where outright Team Rocket stops in what's basically a van. They say, oh, we're out of energy. Hey, can we have your Pikachu? They grab Pikachu and then they take him. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, thank goodness that gets better once Gen 6 rolls around. He still has that trademark obliviousness every once in a while, but compared to these early seasons, like, what happens later is an Arceus send.
Yeah, it's definitely noticeable. It reminds me of that one Simpsons gag. I think Homer gets stupider every year. That's not a question, Professor. Team Rocket then performed their motto with a slight variation on it, which I always liked when they did that, when they tweaked it for the situation. They started doing that more frequently in Gen 2, and then I think by Gen 3, pretty much almost every other motto was a unique one, which is always fun. However, there's also an added twist to this, because whenever Meowth wants to try talking, Mime Jr. starts pushing him out of the way. The motto ends, of course, with Wobbuffet, then Meowth imitating Mime Jr., realizing what he did, and then screaming at Mime Jr. for messing everything up, which that actually got a good laugh out of me.
Yeah, it's always funny when they quote-unquote mess up with variations of something that tends to happen once per episode. Kinda like, for example, the ending of the Powerful Girls where instead of the Powerful Girls showing up, they show some other character, like even Mojo Jojo in some episodes, and he being like, no, I did not save the day, and stuff like that.
Not gonna lie, I kind of forgot this was generation that introduced Mime Jr. to the group. Like, I'll be honest, I don't exactly remember or know which episode Mime Jr. came in and came alongside Wobbuffet. Honestly, remember that there was quite a few Gen 4 Pokemon that were revealed in this anime that made quite a stunning appearance when I was a kid.
Team Rocket then leave in their mech, as we then cut to Grovyle and Tropius facing off against each other. The duo fight each other, with Tropius using Gust, Steel Wing, and Razor Leaf to attack Grovyle, which this is literally the exact same animation as they did not less than 5 minutes ago between the two of them fighting, which, granted, some episodes of Pokemon, the fights were literally just Pokemon jump in front of colored lines and then an attack happens, but this feels even cheaper than that because it's literally just reusing footage that, again, it was seen already. It just feels so cheap in a way that the Pokemon anime doesn't seem cheap, but this felt like they were cutting corners somewhere.
Yeah, I do agree that this definitely feels like the biggest example of the anime saving on money, make sure that they save as much as possible. But thankfully, moments like this add at least new stuff in here so that it doesn't end up making it too obvious that they are cutting corners. Like, they're cheap, but they're not that cheap, you know?
Yeah, Pokemon notoriously had either a low budget for the animation or just did not give a shit until somewhere around Gen 6 when they really started making great battle animations. I've never understood why, though, because by Gen 3, this was already a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Why couldn't you pay for animation for the anime?
It was probably because, Bride, maybe, like, people who worked on this didn't like anime that much or just thought it was too much of a kid's thing. Anyway, my own sense on this is I can't really add anything that was said already, but before they actually fight, Tropius and Grovyle stare at each other with the camera shifting a couple times, and I'm wondering if they're actually saying their own names. Grovyle, Tropius, Pinky.
Yeah. Also, a little thing to note here: you get a gratuitous shot of Tropius's butt. You're welcome, internet.
As Tropius continues to use the same moves, which he'll obviously run out of power points, and he just has to use Struggle, which means that Grovyle just has to wait it out and he'll win.
Unless he has a PP potion on him somewhere.
That's true. Yep, he needs an ether for that. Grovyle then blocks Tropius's attack and remembers how Meganium helped him earlier. Grovyle then runs up the tree and uses Bullet Seed in order for him to attack Tropius, then finishes him off with Leaf Blade. I do like this. As soon as Tropius is defeated, like the second he goes down, Team Rocket instantly shows up. Just something about the timing of that actually got a good laugh out of me. They tell Tropius that they have Meganium. They then notice Grovyle and how he defeated Tropius. As Meganium looks concerned, she slowly runs towards Grovyle as he opens her arms to hug her. This goes on for a little bit, only for her to run right past him and start nuzzling up next to Tropius, which, man, poor Grovyle. This is the guy that really suffers in this episode.
And for about 2 or 3 other episodes, because this was the moment where Meganium ultimately lost. Don't get me wrong, she's a sweetheart. She tends to hurt or injured Pokemon. Man, he was about ready to propose to Meganium, and she just runs past this guy and pretty much mentally cripples him, as you'll see in a bit. But did this episode not sit right with me because of that? And it doesn't exactly get any better from here.
Nurse Joy doesn't exactly know about this relationship. She noticed Tropius never attacks her Pokemon, yet she never noticed the two were in love. Some Pokemon expert she is. Or otherwise she could explain two were in a relationship.
The Delibirds and the Comb Bees.
Seeing that Tropius is hurt from the battle, she ends up healing him with their powers as the two cuddle up next to each other. Team Rocket note how sweet this is, as in a nice touch, James actually feels really bad for Grovyle. It's always nice to see when James is the more sensible one of the three.
Yeah, that's the thing about James. He is always the nicest member of the trio.
Grovyle then collapses to the ground with a shocked expression, which they actually hold on for quite some time, and it's a good one, not gonna lie. This looks really, it's heartbreaking and yet hilarious at the exact same time. Ash and the others then arrive, and seeing Grovyle's condition, Ash yells at Team Rocket for doing this to him, as they explain that it wasn't them, it was from his fight with Tropius. I do like the little touches that the animators put. The giant mech actually shrugs when Team Rocket says it wasn't them. Why did they reuse the battle sequences when they're actually going so far as to do little character touches with Team Rocket's mech like that?
Was it shrugging? Because they kind of looked like they were shaking their hands like, oh no, it wasn't us. It wasn't us. It was the other guy over there.
I like how almost offended Team Rocket sounds at the accusation that they did that to Grovyle. They are Pokemon thieves, but they aren't heartbreakers. They have standards.
Yeah. But I 100% don't blame Team Rocket for this. They aren't innocent, but this one's on Meganium and Tropius, man.
Ash doesn't get why it happened, thinking that Grovyle is upset because he lost, as Meowth yells at him for being so stupid. Brock realizes that Grovyle won the war in the act of revenge, but not the battle of love. Ash still doesn't get it, wondering how someone can both win and lose at the same time, as the rest of the group is stunned by his idiocy. And a hilarious touch, I love how even Pikachu is shocked at this. This is the same guy who thought, if you put an electric blanket on while in front of an open refrigerator, you'll be hot and cold at the same time. Grovyle begins to cry at this, as Team Rocket's mech manages to steal both Meganium and Tropius, with Meowth mocking them as, at least you're together. Grovyle hears the cries and struggles of Meganium and begins to focus, growling as he begins to glow white. He ends up glowing for quite some time, then manages to evolve into Sceptile. Ash then checks his Pokedex on Sceptile's info, then tells Sceptile to get the two of them back, as Meowth yells in probably what to me is the funniest line, I didn't paint this mech bright pink just to lose! Love the idea of Meowth standing in front of it with a paintbrush for hours on end.
Remember when I mentioned, remember this moment with Tropius wanting to go as long as Meganium was there? Why does he have a problem with it now? He wanted to go with them as long as they get Meganium. I can understand Meganium didn't want to go because she was kidnapped, but I thought it would be better if Tropius changed his mind, then they captured him.
I think it was more because Meganium was captured, and that's not exactly what Tropius wanted. She wanted Meganium to come on her own thing, but yeah,
Alright.
like, not
Fair
gonna
enough.
lie, when Sceptile evolved here, this guy almost reminded me of Ultra Instinct. Sadly, he did not get here, and it only gets worse for him as the episode goes on. I got the mental image of Meowth doing the whole bright pink painting thing for like hours on end, and that just made me think these guys put a lot of detail into crafts that are just gonna get blown up. It's like Kirby taking a statue of the Thinker and then just smashing it on Bonker's head. Like, that is some valuable effort wasted, you know?
I guess because the way they approached it to him, like they were talking to him, hey, you wanna come, we're gonna give you this. I suppose he was expecting the same to happen with Meganium, that they're gonna go to her and say, hey, wanna come this place? Yeah, once he found out they were taking her by force, that's when he said, actually, no, I do not want this.
Yeah, if they did that would fix my issue with that wee bit.
Jesse and James then sends Viper and Cacnea, who are actually launched directly out of the mech into Sceptile. The three Pokemon crash to the ground as Ash tells Sceptile to use Bullet Seed, but nothing happens. It turns out that none of Sceptile's attacks are working, with Viper using Poison Tail and Cacnea using Needle Arm on the grass type. They also try stepping on him with the mech, which that feels a little bit too far for Team Rocket, especially by this point in the series. I don't think they'd actually try to hurt somebody's Pokemon like that.
First, Sceptile gets mentally stunted, thanks a lot to Meganium and Tropius for doing that to the poor guy, but then he almost gets killed?
Ash then has Pikachu use Thunderbolt on the mech, destroying its legs. As the mech falls down, we get a really hilarious moment as James screams, "Oh, my aching back," when the mech collapses, which that got a good laugh out of me. It also manages to release Meganium and Tropius, as the two then smile warmly at each other. Nurse Joy then approaches the pair of them and hugs them. It turns out that Team Rocket is actually unharmed from the mech's destruction, as Meowth calls in the famous Meowth balloon. Tropius then flies to the balloon, as Meganium uses Razor Leaf and Tropius uses Gust to pop the balloon, sending Team Rocket blasting off again as always.
This episode kind of breaks a little mold with new evolved Pokemon, is that they feed Team Rocket and send them blasted off, but not this one. Sceptile can't use any of his moves, and it has to be the other episode Pokemon have to do it, but this is a good strength to break a mold, but a terrible way to introduce the final evolution of one of the main starter Pokemon of this region.
I 100% agree. The Battle Frontier was not kind to Ash's Sceptile whatsoever. I'm sure it got a few moments where Sceptile was ultimately useful and actually got the shine, like in one battle against Caesar, but here, this is honestly a prelude to what Unova would do to Ash throughout the entirety of his time there, and it's not sitting right with
Tropius and Meganium then embrace as Maid says how they're such a cute couple. In a really funny moment, Brock says, "I'm jealous." The pair nuzzle as Sceptile watches on as we cut to the sun setting and the pair still embracing each other. Nurse Joy says how both Tropius and Meganium will live at the Pokemon Center together, as Brock says how that's completely natural, like how nature intended, which is actually franchise accurate because both Tropius, Meganium, and Sceptile are all in the same egg group. So good on the showrunners for actually being lore accurate, especially considering they weren't in a lot of other cases.
Which egg group that is, that's the monster egg group.
Exactly. Also the grass egg group. That being said, though,
Oh, the Sceptile line is not in the grass egg group. That their second egg group is the dragon one, unfortunately.
still doesn't exactly excuse what they did to Sceptile in this episode. Definitely affect the ranking, but
Brock then hits on Nurse Joy again before being dragged away by Max. Ash asks Nurse Joy if Sceptile will be alright, then wonders why Sceptile couldn't attack. Nurse Joy suggests it might be from a broken heart, but Ash, of course, still doesn't get it. Nurse Joy explains how it's not always enough to be physically strong, but there's other ways to evolve, and that you have to learn from your experience like Sceptile is. She then asks Ash if he will learn from this experience too, as he and Pikachu say yes.
everyone strap in to an entire 2 or 3 episodes of Sceptile being not as great as he was hyped up to be in this episode. He'll get better. Strap into him just being a heartbroken boy for the next 2 or 3 episodes.
At least he fought against Maze, Blaziken, and Darkrai and Sinnoh.
Nurse Joy then says that meeting people like Ash is why she loves her job. We cut to the group on the ship as Nurse Joy waves goodbye and thanks them for all their help. The episode ends with the narrator saying how, although Grovyle evolved into Sceptile, that doesn't mean that Grovyle, aka Sceptile's broken heart is healed. But with the confidence and wisdom of Nurse Joy, they all head out to the island for May's next Pokemon contest. And that's it for the episode. We get the famous To Be Continued card. And then we get the end credit music, which is very bad, to put it politely. It's some kind of a rap that would sound dated for 1991. Let alone 2006. Even by the standards of Pokemon rap, this rap is not good.
I will admit that listening to this, yeah, it's not exactly as good as I remember either, especially compared to Ash's voice, which is the pinnacle sin of this series. I could imagine worse. There are definitely other raps out there that are even worse than this, especially that one from the SpongeBob musical.
This was early to mid 2000s when this anime came out, and this was a 4Kids exclusive thing, and it was bad. This was at the time where 4Kids was just shoving rap into everything because, oh, well, the youth like it. It had, as you can see, very bad results. For as much as I've said that I hate the One Piece rap, there was at least some sort of like ironic endearment to that. This just feels cynical, and we need a rap song, make it work.
The One Piece rap, I do like it, actually, especially when you got a certain Aladdin parrot singing it one time, and I'm also glad Dinosaur King, another 4Kid anime they dubbed, didn't have a rap song. When I heard this for the first time, I actually said nope and closed the video as I immediately hated it. I did not stick around.
There are worse raps out there. This isn't exactly as bad as them, but
Fair, but I just didn't want to hear a bad rap.
That's it for Pokemon Battle Frontier. This would actually be the last season that Hoenn would get on the show, with the next season being Diamond and Pearl. For what it was, I enjoyed the episode, but not nearly as much as some of the other Pokemon episodes we've discussed. In fact, I'm probably going to say this is probably the not bad, but let's say least good Pokemon episode we've discussed already, because between the reused animation and the voice acting, this was definitely different compared to, for example, the Dragonite episodes.
I wholeheartedly agree. This is by and large the weakest of the Pokemon episodes we've covered so far. Even more so than the Master Quest one, and I really enjoyed that one. This one did not sit right with me. Did Grovyle, aka Sceptile, really bad. I used to be a big fan of Sceptile than I am nowadays. Wow, this just did some very bad things to Grovyle. Those flaws aside, I thought the episode was alright.
As I said, this still was enjoyable for what it was. Even a lesser Pokemon episode of the anime is still really good to see. And yeah, that is going to lead to the question of the week, which is, what is your favorite Pokemon ship? The reason we're discussing this is obviously because this episode had Grovyle / Sceptile, Tropius, and Meganium Triangle. I'll go first, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be the most basic, obvious answer as usual. I'm going to go with Ash and Misty because I mean, it really worked out. Just the way we see their relationship blossom over the course of several seasons. The fact that 4Kids himself promoted it in other material, like the Pokemon stage show and some of the albums and that. So even they subtly winked towards it. And as a whole, it's something that just feels right, you know? It's something that just clicks in a way that all of the other Pokemon shipping really doesn't, at least for me anyway. Well, my second choice is obviously going to be Jesse and James, which actually does happen in the Pokemon manga, not the anime, sadly, but it is official in the manga that they do get together and they actually leave Team Rocket and they end up having kids together. That is really just the ending that they should have gotten in the anime. I'm sorry, they should have actually transferred that over because that was perfect for them. So that's going to be my choice. Again, the most basic ones, but next week maybe I'll have a better answer. But let's see, Angron, what would your pick be?
When it comes to Ash ships, there are quite a lot. Ash and Misty is one of them. The one that feels a little more believable to me is Ash and Serena, because on top of having a history with each other, they honestly have supported each other through thick and thin. And for that reason, I would absolutely put them on this list. But I'm sorry, Ash and Latias all the way. That one scene in the Pokemon movie, that was a risk that they did not have to do, and yet they did, and I am perfectly normal about that. I like it so much for obvious reasons and also not so obvious reasons. Latias throughout that movie really got to know Ash for the most part. It's really saying something when a Pokemon like Latias, a mystic Eon Guardian that has been protecting a place like Alto Mare for quite a while, gets immediately smitten with a person like Ash, and all the way I am for that. So, yeah, I'm absolutely going to have to choose that one over Ash and Serena. Ash and Serena is going to be my number 2 choice, but number 1, absolutely this.
That's a great choice right there because, again, it's one that definitely became more popular because of that movie, and we'll actually discuss that movie on the podcast in the future, so it'll bring us more opportunity to talk about it, which will be interesting. Let's see. Matt, what would your pick be?
I have often argued that the Pokemon series just isn't the Pokemon series without Jesse and James, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. One of them is that they are the best couple in the show. While not ever being a couple in the show, for all intent and purposes, they act like it. They show very well that they do actually care about each other and always look out for each other. For as much as they quarrel or bicker, it's more in the we've been together for so long couple kind of bickering rather than we hate each other bickering. They have each other's backs, they defend each other, they help each other. Even in the early seasons, you can see that they were really good friends. And I've often viewed them as actually like a full-on, not official, but in my head, married couple that are doing all of their shit together. And that's just always how it's come across, especially in later seasons when they were really good at bouncing off each other and helping each other. And it just feels like that is just something that is natural without ever being said in the series.
That's a really great choice right there. Pretty much for all the reasons you said. Let's see. Sharkwood, your pick, B.
Well, let's see. There's quite a good number of ships in the Pokemon series and franchises. The most iconic one, especially because everybody almost talks about it, is of course the SS Anne. I mean, come on, it takes you to through major cities of the game. And its part is involved with one of the biggest mysteries with the truck where Mew is supposed to be at and all of that. So yeah, I guess the SS Anne is exploring the SS Anne is also. Wait, what kind of ship are we talking about? Yes, we're not gonna leave down the Shark and Math have the same brain cells implications here because yep, I think Jesse and James are like the best chemistry in the whole franchise. They're one of the few characters that have been the whole series until the episode Ash left finally, and yeah, everything Matt said is basically what applies with me as well.
I mean, can't believe why, because again, they're just such an iconic couple for a reason, and like I said, it does become canon in the universe, so hey, if the showrunners or manga writers rather can say it's canon, then so can we.
Right, I got 2 picks, and they're actually mentioned before by you guys. Jesse and James and Ash and Latias. Those are my 2 favorite picks. I just want to mention something new. Jesse and James' relationship was actually confirmed in the Japanese version of the second Pokemon 2000s movie. I believe it is mentioned they are in a relationship.
It is now time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale, where we are going to rank none other than Meganium. Now, let's see if she gets the same score as her pre-evolved form, Chikorita. I don't know for me. I mean, design-wise, perfect, 10 out of 10. It's one of the best Pokemon designs pretty much ever. She's a really great character in that, at least in terms of design. In terms of characterization, at least for the episode, it doesn't feel like they give her a lot to do. She's really just like the damsel in distress, the love interest, the object to be won, which, granted, it's a simple story in that, so I understand what they were going for. Even with that, other Pokemon episodes have done it way better. There's the episode with the Wigglytuff and the Psyduck, that's a good example. There's the episode with the 2 trainers that fight and their Nidoran and their Nidorian fall in love. They did Pokemon romance much better than this. So, with that being said, I'm going to have to give her a 7 out of 10. Design-wise, perfect, no notes, nothing can be changed. But in terms of just the other elements of her, I just can't give her any higher than I'm really feel sorry about because again, I just love the look. But if they just gave her a little bit more characterization or personality or something, it would have been better. Let's see, Angron, what would you give her?
The characterization and personalization of her is twofold. On the one hand, she's sweet, kind, works for Nurse Joy, so she is the designated healer of the place, and definitely would be a good substitute if they ever were to run out of chances. Other end of the spectrum, though, kind of makes her a little bit passive and kind of makes her a little bit of a careless. Given the fact what she did to Grovyle / Sceptile indirectly in this series, and doesn't even bother to acknowledge what she did to Grovyle / Sceptile, that's not exactly what I look for in an episode of Pokemon. Nobody in this episode on the opposite side of Ash and Friends, and Team Rocket for that matter, does anything to rectify the situation, and he just has to deal with it for 2 or 3 episodes. Maybe an apology, an acknowledgement that she did something as like a little bit of a good send-off and the hope that he can get better quicker. She's a Meganium! I love Meganium! I used one in my Nuzlocke! It won me the Pokemon League, and yet here, I will be perfectly honest, Ash's Bailey should have evolved into a Meganium, and we could have gotten a Meganium in Ash's team that would have been better than this. I'm normally like positive understanding on a lot of things, but doing this to Ash's Grovyle with little to no repercussions and without even acknowledging it, that talks for a lot of points in my opinion. The fact that she's a Meganium, the fact that she helps Ash's Grovyle, and the fact that she ends up being the one to take down Team Rocket alongside Tropius. I love Tropius, but he's also got a hand in this. I can't exactly see myself ranking him anything higher than a 6 out of 10. Like, she left a very bad taste in my mouth in this episode, and I very much want to see other Meganium do better than this. So yeah, I'm giving her a 6 out of 10 because this woman did not do her kind any favors whatsoever.
Easy to see why. So let's see, Matt, what would you give her?
As has been stated already, the design of Meganium is great. One of the best grass starter Pokemon from a design perspective. So 10 out of 10 there, no notes with that. The anime does a good job of translating that design and putting it into motion. The issue is with the earlier seasons of Pokemon, they had this sort of back and forth problem of some Pokemon had incredibly huge personalities and characters. Hi Pikachu, how you doing? Hi Jigglypuff, how you doing? And some of them just did not. They had no personality, no character, no nothing, especially their one and done episode characters or side characters. And unfortunately, Meganium kind of fits into that. You see a little bit of personality with her effectively being the Pokemon equivalent of a Nurse Joy, but you don't really get much. And it's very sparse what is there. So this is closer to a typical giant monster than not. And I really can't do much more than a 7 as well.
I definitely can see why, because again, it's one of those things that she could have been so much better, but let's see what the rest of the ratings are. Let's see, Shark, what would you give her?
Design-wise, yeah, it's a great Pokemon design. It alone will have gotten a perfect score, but it's a character where it really lands flat because she's not even like a character in this episode. She's more like a plot point. She's like something for the other characters to react and move around. Like, well, is the reason eventually evolved to Sceptile? Is the reason Team Rocket had to actually steal Pokemon in this episode? Otherwise, the other one would have gone with them peacefully, basically. So, and yeah, the whole thing where she runs past Grovyle, it was clearly there because, haha, it wasn't the Pokemon that was in love with. Apparently she's supposed to have a past with the other guy, but we don't really see that. We're just told so. Not even a flashback or anything like that. So, yeah, again, she's not that much of a character. She's more of a plot point. And yeah, you're not... For a one-shot Pokemon and all of that, it's really not much. I think I'm gonna go with a 7 out of 10 as well.
I definitely see why, because as soon as we're all on the same page here. Let's see, Stormflame, what would you give her?
I'm gonna be the minority. I kind of found Meganium's design kind of boring at first, but I did grow a soft spot after Chikorita, but given how it's often ignored. For this one, in this episode, she feels like a plot device. I don't really blame her for Sceptile's feelings for hurting them. It was clear they had a good she had a relationship with tropius. I just think Nurse Joy should have picked up on that, her Pokemon, and knowing Pokemon behavior, but Sceptile kept his emotions about Meganium a secret a little bit. So there's not really that much time for the two to interact in the first place, so I don't blame her too much, but I at least would appreciate some sort of sorry out of her. Anyway, I'm gonna give her a 6 out of 10 because I feel like they should have done more with it. Maybe the episode.
I think we're all under the same impression that she's a great design, a great, Pokemon in general. Just that this version did not live up to the image most people have of her.
Well, I still kind of think the design is kind of boring, but I did say I have a soft spot because I feel sorry for nobody picking Chikorita that many times.
Yeah, I love the Meganium line. I especially love this one as well because the potential is there for her to be an absolute sweetheart and just absolutely understand what actual legit kindness means, especially being a Pokemon of Nurse Joy. But I'm sorry, they really dropped the idiot stick hard on her this episode, and that Sin, especially what she did to Grovyle, and it really did not sit well with me, and that is why I gave her the score I did.
If you have any questions, or if you want to suggest another one of Meowth's boss fantasies, you can email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us at Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Visit us at Bluesky at Bluesky Be sure to subscribe to the playlist, like and hit the bell icon, leave a comment. Any all comments are appreciated. Next week, we're going to be talking about the 1981 Epcot attraction, Universe of Energy / Ellen's Energy Adventure, to start Jurassic July for 2026. We've got a lot of fun dinosaur-related stuff prepared for you, and this one is going to be a really unique one. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and take care.
Later, y'all.
Peace out.
Goodbye, folks.
Bye-bye.
Adios. See you all next week.